Hello and welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast.
At what age do we learn how to have better conversations? At what age do we learn to have better conversations with ourselves?
Knowledge is power. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast. Today's recommendation is in the form of a book. I finished this one up audiobook style this AM. It is called Awareness by Anthony DeMaio. I got this recommendation myself from hearing that Tim Ferriss, I don't know if somebody gifted it. He gifted it to somebody. I think it was a constant gift that he would give to friends was this book. And I saw that a couple weeks ago or read about it or heard about it. And I was like, well, I trust that because I trust that guy. Definitely check out his podcast too or any of his books. That's another great recommendation there, Tim Ferriss. But the book recommendation, Awareness by Anthony DeMaio. Check it out. It's great. Today's episode is with Rebecca Wyld. It's quite fantastical. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are holding your loved ones close. I hope you're looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you too. I hope you're feeling healthy. I hope you're feeling loved. I hope you're feeling whole. Don't forget to FaceTime your extrovert friends. You know, don't forget to reach out to the ones who are, you know, not dealing so well with being at home. You know, look out for each other. Take care of yourself. Let's get rolling. Mostly, I've been able to not have to edit much. Like at the very beginning, it was actually kind of funny because I was so self-conscious and like I realized that I said words way too often or I didn't enunciate very well. And so at the beginning, my first like 10 episodes, I kept like editing my voice. Like I was like, oh, I wish I didn't say that. Or like someone would be talking something serious and I'd try to throw like a weird joke in or something and it didn't hit. And so I'd be listening back to it and I'm like, oh, I should take that out. Like, but it's funny, Art. It's like, dude, that's a conversation that happened. You can't rewind. Like,
exactly.
Just who you are. The person is totally fine. Like, they're comfortable. It's interesting. We're like so self-critical of ourselves, but we're just who we are. You know, like
we try to catch it before someone else does.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like got this weird protection method. Like, no, I'm gonna find my flaws so that way people don't point it out. I'm gonna find it first.
Yeah, you can't throw it at me. You can't stab me with the weapon that I took back.
But my favorite thing about that is noticing that you are a beginner in something and that if it is your truth, then it doesn't really matter what people say. It doesn't matter if you've done this one time or 1,000 times or if you are doing it with like low budget stuff or $1 million production. There's still going to be haters. There's going to be critics. Right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that we all think that we're like just because I'm making a podcast doesn't mean that I'm trying to compete with all the top podcasts.
No.
Like I'm just doing what the level I'm at. Like when I make a song, I'm not trying to say that I'm better than Drake. I'm just making a song because I'm a human being who hears music, you know, like whatever. It's crazy. We put a lot on ourselves, but I think that we put a lot on ourselves because we accidentally kind of put a lot on other people too. Like it's just our way of living. Like the same things that we do to other people, they're doing to us.
Yes.
And when you kind of slow it down, you're like, oh, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that to them because I don't want them to do it to me.
Exactly. Or Jake, can I tell you a secret?
Tell me a secret.
Okay.
It's recording.
Oh, then I will tell you the secret.
Okay. The whole world gets secret.
When you were changing your platform a little bit, the direction that you were going with it, is the same time that I was doing my schooling. And so I was seeing it, and then I was watching it grow. And there was a part of me, there was a yucky part that got really jealous. And I did not like how that felt. I'm like, what the heck? I like this person. Why do I feel like meh about it? So I had to actually pause. Be like, why are those feelings creeping up when the person like you, Jake, were doing something beautiful? You were making a difference. And why was it feeling like a threat to me? Like, it was my own self criticism.
Right.
I'm not where you're at yet. Like I'm going through a program that I'm paying for and I'm going to make money by doing it, making a difference. And I was like, oh, crap. And then there's part of me that felt bad for charging for it. when you're out here making a difference just by people listening to your podcast.
Oh, right.
And there was so many elements that I actually sat down with a notebook and like, why did this bother me? And had to really observe my own emotions.
Good for you. That's actually savage. That
Guess
you did
what?
That.
It's the same day you asked me if I would do the podcast.
Are you serious?
It's after I was like, no, the more that this is available to everyone, the more change we can make.
Yeah.
The more avenues people have, the more they see it. Like, you know, how we're scrolling through stuff. Mm-hmm. It's going to make a difference. And that's what matters. And like, that's the core of all of this.
Yeah.
And then not even an hour later, you're like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? I'm like, Jesus. Yes.
Dude, life is so curious like that, isn't it? Like it was I think I was looking back through the text this morning and I texted you and you're like, so why did you have me on the podcast? Or why did you ask me? And I was like, kind of told you some stuff. And then the last thing I was like, and honestly, intuition. I mean, who knows what that word really means, right? Like, who knows? But like, I don't know, when you follow it and you just kind of trust it and you just like, you see like, oh, this person is doing this thing. Mm-hmm. Like, let's expand on that, mm-hmm. you know, and you just follow it. It seems like so far it's been going pretty well for me. And it seems like I feel so fucking fulfilled at the end of these podcasts.
Yes.
It's something new. Like I've been feeding my ego my whole life. Like let's be popular on stage. Like, mm-hmm. oh, you guys are going to chant my name. I love that, you mm-hmm. know, like, of course, but this is something new. This is it's like a popularity, not for me. I don't take it for myself. I'm like, it's just like I don't know. It's like, it's reaffirmation, I guess, but it's great. I love it. It's cool. I'm super happy to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's a new experience for me and it's fun. Actually, yeah. I'm not as nervous as I thought that I was going to be.
Yeah.
My mouth is working.
It's working. I'm saying
I can
words.
Form words and sentences.
I pulled this up because I would like to start with this. You sent me this. This is, I'm just going to read this and then I would love for you to explain what it is.
Okay.
The wild woman is a warrior, a goddess of the wilderness, who loves herself at any form, who honors her body with food from the earth, who connects with nature as a way to feel grounded, who strives to get back to a simple way of living. Less clutter, less chemicals, less stress, more fresh air, more self-love, more living. Be wild, be well. You sent that to me. Can you tell me about this?
That is my big old motto that I've learned to live by. Anytime that I feel myself getting like out of control, it's those words that I've written over and over and over and over again that have made me more grounded and made me feel stable. Because like I've mentioned before, I kind of like to have control, but you can only control so much in your life. And most of that is your reaction to what happens. And so when it comes to being like wild and being well, that's it. It's taking from the earth to give back to yourself. Like the food that we put in our bodies, drinking enough water, going out into nature literally saved my life. These things have made my life worth living. And I just wanted to be able to encompass that into one single post or one visual aid that people could reference. Yeah. So that way maybe they could be reminded to slow down and do those things as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's crazy. I have a thing written on the wall, you give things power. And it like flirts with my mind all the time. Like it was I didn't grow up with like a dead set value structure or any of those things. And so like I kind of just like rejected like being 100% for sure about things or any of that. But I think when you give things power, you can take like, what's this big idea? What's this thing like, oh, like all these things have helped me. And how can I make my brain remember all those things, but not make it too complicated?
Yes.
And you did condense it down. Like you gave this paragraph power, and it seems like it's given a lot of life or a lot of power to your life.
Absolutely.
But now you're like extending it. Like, how can I make this creed, this thing here, shine to other people, to other women?
Yes.
Have you had good experiences with other people? Like, have other people read it? Any of your, do you have clients yet, or do you have? Okay. How do they feel about it? Where are they at with that?
Oh, they resonated with it really well. Yeah. It becomes like, it's attainable.
Right.
And it's simplified down. So like, oh, I can do that. It's a good reminder. And I'm just really proud of the people that I have been working with, because they seem to sit down because they're at their wits' end. They're in the middle of the chaos, and we pick it apart and we simplify it down to things that they can get that power from.
Right.
And by that, I mean empowerment. Because most of the time we're really confused about what we can and cannot control. And like you said, what we have, or all that we have, is like what we give our attention to, we give the power to.
Right.
So if you can simplify it down into like, I want this, and then give all of your attention to those things, there's a lot more success.
Right. I think that's similar. I totally get what you mean. I think that's similar. I was thinking about, I've mentioned this before, on the inside of my glasses here, I put the word lion. And for me, and then in our upstairs bathroom, there's like this black and white, like it's the whole wall of just like this lion in the morning. And like, that's kind of what I did. Like it's kind of only for me. I haven't really formed, I think I want to form like a junkyard love, like some powerful badass paragraph like you have. Like I'm not there yet. I really like that, but I think it's slowly forming, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for now, for me, even the word junkyard love, but lion is just like all these things that I install in myself. So it's like when I say lion in my head, or I like remember to look at it at the corner of my eye with my glasses here, or I see it in the morning, I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
remember what that means, man? It's like, oh, I'm a good person. I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm safe. And then for me, I'm like, but I'm also a badass. And so I literally straighten my posture anytime I remember to read the word lion. I ground myself. I'm like, okay, I'm here in this moment. Like whatever I was just crazy thinking about, let's realize that's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be right here in this room.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me. That it's grounding, right? Like,
yes.
You talk about grounding too. I look back at our text message and I was like, oh, I definitely want to talk about that. You talk about getting out in nature, grounding. These are, for me, I feel like I've always liked nature, like getting outside. I've always enjoyed it. I've been like a skateboarder. I'm like an outdoor person. But I feel like I was super disconnected from it for many years. Like it was like, oh, it's raining, I'm not going outside. Like it's not the perfect weather, I'm not going outside, I'm staying there. But now I'm like, oh, if I want to walk down to the post office, that doesn't matter if it's raining or not. That's just a thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I now have, am comfortable with going out into the woods by myself and going in runs and going, Coldwater Lake up there is my fucking favorite place. Like I just love going on runs out there. I was very detached from, I almost saw like the people who hiked and like going out in nature and people who enjoyed outside as like a personality trait, as like well, that's just a thing that like those kind of people do, like hiking people or hippie people, or, like, cause we try to conceptualize things of why we don't do them.
Mm-hmm.
And we really like backing it up of like, well, that's just not my thing, that's their thing. But I think that as a human, we live in the craziest fucking world ever. Like it's so crazy that we just have these little boxes that make magic for us at all times, and we have everything at our fingertips. But like getting outside is this feeling. That being out in nature is this thing that like every human has the ability to kind of connect to, and it reminds you, it makes you feel significant and insignificant at the same time.
Exactly. I always say, take me to a place where I feel small.
Oh, I like
and
that.
It's the best thing for me, because a lot of things happen and they're overwhelming and they feel really, really big, and you feel like you're the only person in the world that will understand what's going on. But when you go out and you do that hard hike and you get to the very top and you see that huge mountain or huge waterfall or huge like cavern, whatever it is, it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get there.
Yeah.
So it's just
really long time.
Sometimes I go out there and after a strenuous hike, you're exhausted, but also proud because you just defeated something you weren't sure if you could accomplish. Right. And then there's that beautiful view, and that's where I get my actual like emotional release.
Yeah.
I'll just sit there and cry because it's so pretty, and look at what I get to see. And here I was stressing out about something stupid or insignificant rather. Yeah. And then there's this beautiful thing sitting in front of me. I'm like, I'm going to stay here all day. And I don't have cell phone service, and it's awesome.
Yeah. It's so weird to think about, like, because I think that, okay, so me 3 years ago, I'm in the depths of my anxiety, and someone's like, you need to go for a run and you'll feel better. I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, you don't just get like a magic fairy that gets to the end of, at the end of your hike. That's like, all right, here you go. But it really is it's a feeling. It's something that we don't super have words for. And I think it is just that, like a reminder of like what this all is about. It takes you out of your maze of your head that we all have. Mm-hmm. We all have a maze, and we all, and sometimes being in that maze and like the stuff that gives us anxiety isn't always unrealistic. Like sometimes it is, but sometimes it's like we're just thinking about crazy and big stuff in our life or big decisions. And for me, like getting out into the woods and just like feeling that, it helps clear it out. Where are your go-to hike places? Like where are some places that stand out?
Oh,
Everywhere?
man. Yeah. Anywhere and everywhere I go, I have the All Trails app. And
Okay, tell me about the All Trails app. I don't have it.
It's just All Trails. And it's like a little green tree thing. And it's GPS, so you can type in anywhere that you want to go, or you can literally look up the location that you're at, and it will tell you any hikes that are near you. It'll tell you the distance that it is, if they allow pets, if it's like family friendly, how hard it is, like the incline. And then you can also download the map. So if you're someone that's afraid to do it because you don't want to get lost, you can download the map and it will track you all the way to the end and all the way back. Yeah. It's my most favorite thing on the planet. Anytime someone says, where should I go hiking? I just send them the link to the app.
That's so great.
And then my favorite thing about it is you can look at comments too. So you can see if there's any road closures or if there's any safety things to worry about. Or lately with the snow, there's been some comments like, don't go up there, there's snow. And I'm like, yes, there's snow. I'm going to take my snowshoes and get my butt out there.
But if it was my car, I'd be like, well, I can't even get up there.
Exactly. Then you know what vehicle to take, what clothes to take, what food to take.
Like, that's so cool. It's kind of, have you heard of the Waze app? I think it's a driving app, like a maps app, Waze.
I have heard of it.
Yeah. It's kind of like that where like if you're driving on the freeway and someone sees like a broke down car, they can like put on there like, hey, there's a broke down car on the side of exit whatever 48.
Yeah, it helps get you over the hazard areas.
That's cool. Like humans really helping each other out. If you think about like all the different contributions that it takes to make those cool things, like that app.
Exactly. And I think it was only like $20 a year for the advanced version where you could download all the different kinds of maps, like topography maps and the forestry maps, road maps.
Have you ever had to fight any cougars on your hikes?
No, but I have seen bear.
You've seen a bear?
Yeah, I have not seen any cougars on the trail, but that's probably because they're really stealthy and quiet. But bears, those things, you walk around a corner and there's a bear there, then they kind of freak out and you freak out, and they make so much noise when they're running through the woods. And you're like, normally I don't hike without some sort of protection.
Right, of course. I agree. That's a good thing. What can you tell me about your bear story? Is it like as intense as it seems, or?
No, it was literally just that. Like you're hiking around like, oh, this is beautiful. Oh, they smell. Bears have a scent.
Oh, I imagine,
it kind of smells like a really, really, really wet dog.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a weird smell in the middle of.
They probably don't take many baths with shampoo and stuff, I imagine.
No, they should.
They have a human who just washes their belly for them.
Oh,
that would be cute.
I can offer that in the salon.
Okay. Come on down, bring your bears. No. Bring your bears, kids.
No, but it was literally that, just walking around a corner and there was a bear there and I got startled and it got startled and then it went a different direction. It was fine.
Were you able to like chill after that though? Because I feel like I would be like, I'm going to go home and lay down on the ground.
I just listened a lot more intently. Like my senses were able to are heightened, but I figure it was afraid of me as well. And so I just kept going. Just paid a little closer attention.
Yeah, it's another thing that's like, it's scary, but it's also like after the fact, it is kind of an incredible thing. Like our lives are so disconnected. Like if it's not a zoo or on the TV, you don't see bears. Mm-hmm. And then you like kind of get reminded of like, oh yeah, fuck, that's real. You know, that's it. And it again makes you feel significant and insignificant, right? In a way. Right?
Definitely pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's why I always, or I guess I never wear like headphones or anything, because I want to hear all the little cracks and snaps of the twigs and my own footsteps, my own breath. It's just very interesting. I would never want to cover that up just for safety reason and connection with the earth.
I think that it puts us into like this weird flow state for sure. Like, I mean, hiking, like just hearing your breath and like there's almost so much, there's nothing, but also so much going on when you're hiking, right?
Yes.
Like every tree is so intricate and all the different edges of the trail. And sometimes when it's not like a super easy trail too, like, and you're just going, it kind of makes you forget about your other shit. Mm-hmm. And you're just in that moment. It's really a present moment forcing situation. I was hiking a few months back and I was up by myself and at the first part, I had headphones in and I listened to music and I was like, I get like a mile and a half in. I have like my little, I know. No, that's why I asked about cougars, because at Coldwater, there's like signs up that say like, watch out for cougars. And so like, obviously just as a human, you're like, oh, I'm fucking terrified, but I'm cool about that. It's just a sign, whatever. But I went and I was like a mile and a half in, and I wanted to get like good motivation at starting. So I had my headphones on. I got to my first spot, and for me, I smoke weed when I go on hikes sometimes. And so I got to my first spot and I was like started smoking, and I put my headphones off and I just start hearing just the screaming howls of coyotes. And I was like, oh man. And I was like, okay. And I hadn't seen anybody yet there. It was pretty early. And then, but it made me start thinking, it kind of pulled me out. I was like, if a coyote attacks me, what do I do? Like, or do coyotes attack in packs? And so it started getting me like really realizing like, I'm kind of dumb. Like I didn't really think. And then obviously, of course, I'm like, oh, well, coyotes, like I think they probably wouldn't really attack me unless there's like 20 of them. Right. But then I'm like, but also don't forget about that cougar. And it's just funny. Like I once you get that thought in your mind, like the whole rest of my hike, I would get going. I'm good. And I'm at 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden I remember about the cougar and the coyotes. I'm like, oh shoot. You start listening more.
You didn't turn around?
No, I kept going. Ooh. Yeah, I love it. Was so
good job.
So I also have this thing, and I don't know if this is like a super healthy thing, but it helps me like push against my edge and not like bow down to my like sissy side. I know that's a kind of crappy word, but like I kind of like putting myself in fearful positions.
Yes.
And pushing past it. Because in the end, you always win, you know, like,
you learn what's survivable.
Yeah. Like if you, like exploring different states of consciousness and exploring different boundaries that you didn't know you had, like getting to uncomfortable spots and realizing that you can push past is like this crazy unlocking thing as a human for me. Obviously not all the time. Like sometimes I'm a sissy and I turn around. But
there's a difference between trusting your intuition and pushing yourself past like an anxiety that you're just aware of. There's a difference there, because that anxiety is actually meant to keep you alive. That's its purpose. So we can honor that. Be like, oh, I'm scared. So what do? Take my headphones out. I pay attention and I keep pushing. Unless your intuition kicks in and then you're like, no, wait, this is completely unsafe conditions. It's getting dark. The animals are coming out. I'm going to turn back.
Yeah. You've got to be able to like have that little conversation with yourself. Like don't bow down with it, but also just be like, you can do it.
Yes.
Or maybe it's time to turn back.
I have to do that because when I'm out in nature on the way to the cool spot, if I'm not paying attention to the beauty of nature, I'll pay attention to the physical ailments. Like I have a broken foot that I never really took care of, so it'll ache and I'll focus on that. No, let's focus on the beauty of this, or like take a deep breath, get something out of it besides like focusing on my body hurting, because hiking is a physical activity. It is hard. You have a pack on, depends on how long you're going. Like I did a 25-mile hike in one day. And it was extremely difficult. It was up the Asgard Pass, the enchantments, up Leavenworth area. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but how do you get through it? One step at a time. And it was worth it. It was the most incredible place I've ever been in my whole life.
I have not been up there.
And I did it, Jake. That's the thing.
Hell yeah. Congrats. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
That's
I did
super
it.
cool.
I didn't think I could. I was like, not in my best shape, but I just kept going one foot in front of the other and got done. And
how did you start? Like before you had done this hike, have you done anything like anywhere near that long before?
Nope, not at all.
Tell me about like your mindset before versus your mindset after.
Oh man, it was incredible what I was able to achieve, because in the back of my mind, I always knew like I could turn back, and it was a through hike, so it wasn't a loop. So if I made it past a certain point, I might as well just finish it all the way.
Yeah.
And the Asgard, that pass specifically, the hardest part is the beginning chunk. So if I can get through that, I can get through the end. Like it's the physical exhaustion of doing the first 7 miles, the hardest thing. But going back down that pass is dangerous. Yeah. And I wouldn't want to do that. So I just kept going. It was daunting, like grueling to keep going the rest of the way, because the beauty of the mountain it turned into dirt. Like they call it the dead miles, I think. Something along those lines, where it's just there's nothing to look at is what it is. The beauty is what keeps you moving forward through the pass, because there's so many different places you can look, different glacial lakes and everything. Yeah. But when it comes to the mindset of that, at first I was like, I'm not going to pay attention to the miles logged. or the miles that I have left, I'm just going to keep going. I signed up for this. It's an experience and I'm going to make it through it.
Right. Yeah. Once you set out, it's cool. Like making that goal for yourself. Like, I'm going to do this. Like there's a lot of our lives, a lot of us in our life, we don't do things like that. I feel like we don't put a peg in it and say like, I got to do this for me, not for anybody else, but for me.
I'm the most stubborn human I know. If I say I'm going to do it, I have to prove it to myself. I'm not going to give up. I just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that's helped shape you into the more badass version of yourself in many ways.
Yes, I view it as a positive, but sometimes it's actually like a barrier for me because people are like, why can't you be a little bit more flexible, a little less? My husband, my rigidity is something that we battle often because I'm like, no, I made up my mind. I'm doing it. It's like, well, what if that might not be the safest way? Or could you go a different weekend with other people? Or there's, multiple scenarios I can come up with where my rigidity isn't always the best thing. But when it comes to like a success or a goal, hell yeah. It's a good thing.
I feel like it's like the ultimate for people like who are always kind of just like having a little battle in their mind, like to insert a situation where you're like, I'm going to hear both voices of my doubt and my good beast. But like, I've got to do this thing to make sure I'm listening to the good beast. Like a lot of times taking out choices, like you said, oh, can you go a different day? Can you go with these different people? A lot of times bringing in choices into the situation will be enough to cripple me and I won't go. Yeah. Like, oh, I want to go on a hike today. Like just leave at 8 a.m. But then if I love going with friends sometimes, but like if I text friends and then they're like, oh, can we go at 9? And then you're like, oh, who should I invite? It turns into this big thing. It's rather than just like choosing to go. So.
With that one, if you want to go on that hike, you go when it works for you. Like if it only works for you at that time of day, then you set the time and then you make sure you tell all the people like all the details. Right. I'm leaving at this time. We're meeting at 8. I need to be back by 2.
Right.
Can you go? Because then there's no.
That's a good,
boundaries.
Yeah, I think we kind of live in a world, especially when it comes to texting and stuff, right? Where we live in a world where we're afraid to like come at them with like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Love for you to join me. Like rather than like hey, I was thinking about this mountain. Have you ever heard of it? And there's this hike and we could like throwing all these options because you want to make your friend comfortable and you want to give them options. But I think you're right. I think a lot of us are a little healthier when we just pick what we're doing and say, do this. I would love for you to join me. Yeah,
if you've been a people pleaser of any part of your life, then Definitely. That's like a habit that's going to carry into whatever you're doing. And as we're becoming more of our own person, knowing what we want to do, it's not being like assertive or aggressive with it. You're just like, hey, this is the plan that works for me. Can you come? If not, I'm going to go by myself.
Right. I feel like I find that people actually respect that. Like there's always a little bit of a fear. Like I don't want my friend to think that I'm like being too stern or being like a hard ass, but most of the time your friends are like, cool, awesome. Like I support you. I'm down.
Or like, I'm an early riser. I want to beat the traffic. I want to be there before sunrise. And then I want to be home to make dinner and like wind down.
Excellent.
A lot of people aren't like that. A lot of my friends aren't like that, let's say. So I know that. So there's some wiggle room. Like, well, okay, I want to leave at 4. Should we leave at 6 then? And they're like, yes, thank you.
I was waiting for you to say that.
It's like, I don't know. It just depends on the situation for sure. But if it's something that's important to you, make sure it happens.
Yeah, I agree. Tell me, I want to talk about more of your business and more of your coaching.
Okay.
Tell me about before. So what led you to even want to start doing this? Wanting to start helping people? Like were you a different person before? Did you think differently? What was the jump from like giving yourself this, like, I should try this thing, I want to hear about it.
As much as it was a jump, it was also a push because I've been doing hair for 10 years now. And I noticed that the more that I do hair and lashes, the more my neck was acting up. And I've always had a bad neck. I had a neck injury. And when I look down to look at the lashes that I'm doing or raise my arms to do hair like that, it started to really, really bother me. And then I would start to go, like an old TV that goes whoosh and goes from like actual screen down to nothing.
Yes.
My left eye would do that.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So then I would look up and it was like, go back to normal. Look down, gone. Like, wow, my vision's going away. So I'll just close my eye, just the one eye, and do lashes. Like, what's happening to me? And then
Just stabbing someone in the eye as you're doing
no. I'm very careful.
Of course.
But then I started to get what I thought was like a facial paralysis, because then it started to be my bottom eyelid and my cheek, and then down my lip, then my tongue, then my throat. Like, it just kept progressing, but it wasn't actually paralyzed. It just was this heavy, hot fire. It was awful. And it was only lasting like 30 seconds, but I looked in the mirror and like tried to express my face, and it still had movement, but the pain was so severe that it just makes you go like, wow. And I would shake, and then it would just pass. And it was only when I was working. Oh no. So then I went to a chiropractor, and I don't have health insurance. So I went to the chiropractor and I explained to her what was going on. She's like, you need to go get an x-ray. And I was like, I don't have money for an x-ray. So then I tried acupuncture, and in the same spot in my neck. I didn't say anything. Like a little test, like, what do people know? Tell me what I don't know about my body. Yeah. So she did her little thing, and she was like, hey, I'm not going to put needles on this side because I feel like those muscles are holding your spine in place. Like, I'm not going to release them. I think they're important. You need to go get an x-ray. Mm-hmm. So
and that was the same area you were kind of feeling?
Yes. So then I went to the radiology clinic, and I was like, look, both doctors, both professionals said I should get an x-ray. What can you do for me? I don't have insurance. And you know what they take out of pocket? It was $111 cash.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's a lucky number.
Right? Yes, it is. It was amazing. So I took that x-ray back to the chiropractor, and so when your spine is in alignment, all of your blood vessels and nerve endings sit in these little columns perfectly. But my neck injury was a forceful frontward injury, and it made me have a permanent reverse cervical spine. And so as I'm looking down, all of my blood vessels and nerve endings are actually getting like pinched or severed. Oh, shit. And so doing that motion over and over and over made me have this happen to my face. So she said, hey, Rebecca, I think it's time that you find a different career. Oh, no. And this is my identity. It's the business that I've built. It's who I am. It's what I love. My favorite part about the salon is actually the connection with people and being able to be someone that they could turn to with all of their problems without judgment or ridicule. And so I got on the old Google, and I was like, how can I help people without going to college for 5 years or however many years it would take? And coaching popped up. I was like, oh my God, it's a thing. So I clicked on it, and then I called the school, and it is a thing. And so there's multiple avenues that people could go down when it comes to getting help with something. There's the counselors, doctors, if it's for a physical thing, they could have a trainer, or there's nutritionists when it comes to diet. But like a coach kind of encompasses all of that, except for we do not diagnose or treat you. What we do is hold space for you to tell your story, to say what you want. We empower you to make the choices that align with those things. And we work side by side with doctors or psychologists. So say that you have a team. Everyone needs a team, but you could sign a release form, and then we can work side by side with those people. So if you are diagnosed with a certain health disease, like a lifestyle disease, I can talk with your doctor, and we can make a plan. And then I'm more accessible. A doctor takes a little bit longer to get into, but I'm someone they could like text real quick. Like, I'm having this problem. What do I do? Right.
That's super important.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's been so fulfilling to me to be able to help so many people beyond like hairdressing is basically what they see in the mirror. This is a much deeper avenue, and it feels so good. So everything does happen for a reason, and I'm so excited to see where this actually takes me and other people.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you were able to turn you could use diagnosis, sure, like something terrible, really. Like you could have sat and pouted for that, but instead you're like, what? All right, what do I got to do next? And what's great is you were fueled by, not like, all right, how do I keep making money and just stay afloat? You're like, how do I still help people? How do I still talk to people? Because I think that's a huge. I always loved when I was a kid, any movie where there's like the towns, like if it's like Chicago or New York, and there's like the barber shops. Like I always loved that shit. Like where they would just talk, and there's like the old guys who would just say it like it is. There's somebody playing chess over. I always thought that was the coolest thing. But I think it's because, this world has always been in multiple ways, like now, because social media and phones and stuff and all these other things, it's so fast paced. But but we do have times where you're kind of forced to sit, right? Like you're getting your lashes done, or you're getting your hair done, or and that person talking to you is a therapist in many ways. Like a lot of times people would probably open up to you before they realize they're opening up to you. They'd probably like tell you more than they wanted to say just because you make them comfortable. And,
yes.
But and I think that these areas are important. I actually had something on Facebook I posted a couple months ago about, I was comparing people who do hair and stuff to dialysis machines.
Cleansing.
Like you take a lot on, and you do help a lot of people. You do hear a lot of people's like intricate things, and I'm sure like it's encouraging. But it's essentially the post was, make sure you're finding ways to drain that from yourself, to not hold everyone's problems.
Absolutely. Nature.
And that's exactly. That's a huge thing for me. But yeah, I think it's so cool, like just really like how you're honest about your mindset. Like I think a lot of hairdressers are actually, or hairdressers and people who, what's the word I'm looking for? Like just general taking care of people's. Like
the cosmetologist.
Cosmetologist. That's yes. Okay. That's what I was looking for. The beauty
people.
The beauty people. Yeah, I think they're an important piece in our life, and it's cool that you're like, that, because it's like your real calling, like what you really do is like connect with people.
Yes.
And like, yeah, there's hair and there's eyelashes and there's all these things that you can do in that way, but like you still kept going with connecting people. When you were like feeling crappy, so what did you do to feel better from this like nerve pinching? Like, is it just you didn't
like overall I just powered through it because I have to make money to pay my bills.
Right.
And then I had to make money to also pay for the chiropractor and all of these other like lifestyle changes that I needed to incorporate into my life. So I had to find a balance. And I love the chiropractor that I go to. It's Dr. Stacy at Synergy. And she just straight up asked me like, what's the cost of your health? Mm-hmm. Like, what is stopping you from committing to your own progress? And I'm like, me. And I feel like monetarily I can't. And so we sat down and actually made a plan. She's really, really good with working.
Where's she at?
It's on 11th Avenue, Synergy Health Solutions.
Right.
It was awesome. It was like one of the most life-changing things because she didn't let me get away with anything really, because I'm very like guarded and, well, I was really guarded in private. Now not so much because I feel like being open and honest, like if I'm doing it, I'm also giving other people permission. It's like a catalyst for being honest. And I really feel like that's where changes truly start. And when it came to my neck, it wasn't just about let's align your spine. It was like, let's align your soul. And it's been life-changing. It's been over a year now, or no, almost a year. I think I got fully diagnosed. It's the severity of the injury isn't necessarily fixable, but I'm doing what I can to make it more manageable.
Yeah. You work with it instead of suffering it.
Yeah. And I have to just be mindful about my head placement, and I had to learn how to say no in the salon because I have my clients and I love them, and my lash ladies come every 2 weeks. So they're the majority of my schedule. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking down a lot. I had to create barriers and boundaries like with myself. So that way my schedule had gaps in it, which I'd never done before. It feels unproductive. But I also had to say no to clients when they needed to switch, because I could look at my schedule and be like, I'm already doing 4 in a row. I know that if I do that, then tomorrow I won't be able to move my face.
Good for you. I think little things like that are important. A lot of people who are starting up businesses listen to the podcast. And I think that's a good thing to put a pin in there, is like, there's no point in doing 6 in a row if you're 5th and 6th, you're feeling like crap and you aren't able to show up as the person you want to. And most of the time, if you're honest with your clients, especially if they're kind of a friend level, they're like, oh, I get it too.
Right. You know, we place it upon ourselves that we have to make sure that they're okay, but we're not ever making sure that we are. I never take a lunch unless it fits in my day. I don't take one. For the last 10 years, I've built my business by being available, by being flexible with my time, and by just busting my butt.
Right.
And I busted my neck. so
got busted.
Yeah, if there's any entrepreneurs out there, just make sure you're taking time for yourself.
Protect your neck, son.
Protect your neck.
Buster. And insert Buster Rhymes right here, Jake. So the small neck injury is super interesting, because as you were telling me about that, I was I don't know a ton about it, and you might enlighten me more if I'm totally talking out of my butt. But I was listening to somebody talk about the way that so say you're right-handed, you have your phone in your right hand, and you're kind of like, as you're walking, texting, you're kind of like just the slightest angle. Your eyes are looking down, bottom right, right? Certain shoulder muscles are flexed. Like, it actually does, we forget we're growing at all times. Like, it's like we almost start growing in that direction. Something that, like, when I started doing yoga and started just like being a complete weirdo down here, just exploring like whatever, something that was huge with a lot of the back of my neck pain was my eyes. And like, so I would start, because you notice, like, if you're looking down bottom right and your eyes are kind of looking also down bottom right, and you like look up and down, you can feel in the back of your neck sort of like a pull. Listeners, if you could pretty much just look down and then just move your eyes only, and you can kind of feel a little bit of movement in the back of your neck. So anyway, what I started doing with the yoga and stuff, I started just being a super weirdo, and just as I'm stretching, just wow, and like moving my mouth way open and letting my eyes just rip. Open my eyes as wide as I can and look to the top left and look to the bottom left, and just like flex my eyes, my eye sockets, like my whole face, all this stuff. If you do that like while you're stretching, like I don't know, I feel like you start stretching muscles that you're like, oh, that's been flexed always, and I didn't realize, I didn't let her give a break.
Yeah.
Did you have anything like that?
At the chiropractor, not only do they like, manipulate your spine in some way, but they send you home with exercises to do at home. And I would stare at those papers and like, these are all so silly. But then I sat down and did them, and all it was turning, like, okay, so you're sitting up straight. You're sitting on your butt, but you're also sitting up straight, spinal alignment. And then take your chin and just kind of give yourself the dub chin look. Not too much. And then just look to one side or the other. And now look down.
Gosh, that's so much. You could feel that.
Now look up at that angle. When I look up, my whole head will start shaking because I
black out.
Well, no, I just don't have the muscle stability in that way. And my spine isn't structurally sound at that angle.
Wow.
So
okay, but you have like built resilience and structure, and like all this hiking and being active now seems to be like holding this shit pretty good.
There's two parts to that. This could be crippling, so I want to see the shit now before I can't, before it becomes more challenging. Like, that's why I'm trying to do the harder stuff now before, it holds me back a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Never. Good for you. Yeah, not letting life just hold you down like that.
And before I go on those hikes too, it's making sure I'm as prepared as possible. Like, I try not to take any medicine whatsoever, but ibuprofen I always carry with me just in case it starts to hurt. Drink a lot of water. The week before a hike, I make sure there's no inflammatory foods in my diet. Like, it's about taking the precautions. But yeah, it's pretty impressive what I can do. Like, I can put a 50-pound backpack on my back, even though I have a bad back, and keep walking up a mountain. I also have to just take turns looking up at the beautiful scenery and looking down at my feet, just to give my neck a different angle every once in a while.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's weird. We have all these millions of, I don't know if it's millions, but let's say millions of little micro muscles is what I like to call them. And sometimes they just don't get a lot of movement. I think about like think about in your head, like a nursing home, like a grandma and a moo-moo. Like, think about how many, I'm stretching it. Think about how often, I'm so hilarious. I don't set the scene sometimes. So I'm just like, all of a sudden, grandma and a moo-moo. I'm sorry.
I'm so visual too. So I was like, whoa,
like,
I went from the mountain ready to moo-moo real quick.
Yeah. She turns into a moo-moo. No, but just, I think about how often she moves, like how many, like her arms, her micro muscles in her neck and her toes even flexing. I just think of like, when I think of like, I don't want this to seem mean to like any old people, but when I think of like an old person who like doesn't move a lot, I think of myself and I think I'm not going to be that. I think my plan is, like, I feel like we're going to be able to live a lot longer. A lot of the research they're doing pretty damn well. We're learning about these things that are causing us inflammation, learning about all these things that we can do to like help micro muscles, all these little things. I just imagine when I'm older, I want to be able to move like my whole body and have access to like all these different areas. And I don't want to be the old lady in the moo-moo. I feel like I'm just picking on this poor old lady. I'm sorry, Carol. But I think that we kind of detach ourselves from like we can be young, we could be 25, we could be 30, and we could say like, I'm not going to be like that. But like, if you don't take precautions to not be like that, you know, I'm sure they didn't plan on that either. Like, you know, and we have so much more information at our hands now. We have so much more things we can try. We have so many people sharing knowledge. Yeah, I think just taking control of your life. I do want to talk word inflammation.
Okay.
I really like teaching people about that word where we can. So what foods that give you inflammation, can you tell me about that? Did you start discovering like you would start feeling worse or start feeling inflamed in certain ways when you would eat certain foods?
Yeah. Refined sugar, number one, is my number one inflammatory food. And I love it. It was a really hard habit to break. And every once in a while I still give in. And then the next morning I wake up and I'm like crippled moo granny. I can't do it. I can't move. Help. And it's all the way into my finger joints. And I would go try to lift weights and I would try to do like a normal squat. I'm like, oh my God, my hips. Every joint was achy. I'm like, I did that to me. I did it. It happens when I eat bread. And with that one, I'm not sure if it is gluten or if it's preservatives. I'm not sure. I haven't quite figured that out. But what I did figure out is when I ate an autoimmune protocol diet, it's very basic, very, very basic. Lots of leafy greens, like
paleo sort of. Yeah,
it's just one step above paleo. So you're not eating any like pepper or anything that's spicy. No potatoes, just kind of.
No potatoes, I'd crumble.
You can have sweet potatoes. It's very, you do that for like a month and then you add back in eggs and see what inflames your body. So it's one of those things, instead of being like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. It's about being curious, because your body is your own science experiment. Like anytime that you take a medication, people think that that's going to like cure them, and it might. Or is it just masking the ailment? Whereas when it comes to your diet, that's something you do forever. You have to eat to stay alive. So what are you eating, and is it helping you feel alive?
Right. I think a lot of times our diet and medications is attacking symptoms. I think that we kind of, Shaylee and I talk about this often. Our view on the doctors, and when I say I'm just generalizing society. Like, of course, not everybody, but we kind of do go to the doctors when we're hurt and when we're feeling crappy, and we say, "Fix me, please." And we don't take the time to learn about every single ounce of food we put into our body right before we went to the doctor. There's reasons why you're feeling this way. Not, I'm feeling this way and I want to not feel this way, so give me the thing to make me not feel it.
Right. What's the quickest fix?
Yeah. Do you think it's like this, like just our society's like need for comfort? Do you think it's just kind of a repercussion?
It's our society's need for instant results.
Instant results, exactly.
Because we have everything at our fingertips. We want something, we can get it right now. But that does not happen with your health. It takes work, and you have to think about it. And then it takes action. You can't just be like, well, I want to lose weight, or I want to feel better. I want my neck to hurt less. You have to take action. What can I do to get better? And then you have to actually do the things over and over and over and over and over, and learn about yourself. Like, that actually didn't feel good when I ate that. It made my stomach hurt. Or it didn't feel good when I did that exercise. It hurt my neck. Like, I learned that anytime I put a squat bar on my neck, that didn't feel good. So I talked to the doctor about it. I said, Stacey, what can I do instead? And so I hold weights on either side of me. So that way it's like pulling my neck and back in the correct alignment for me, instead of pushing me forward and giving me that same facial like pinch.
Right.
It's that vagus nerve that runs between your C1 and C2 that gets real funky.
Real funky. Huh. That's so interesting. When you first started, how was the initial like, okay, this is an injury, this is like everything in my life needs to change. Like my health, my whatever. What were some of the, I love getting people, I love helping, putting my hand down and trying to help people off the ground. I think like that first initial, if you can just help people realize that they can take their, do you remember back to that time when you're like, okay, I got to make changes? Like, was it pretty hard with diet? Was it like a slow start? Or did you just keep going? Like, was it like, I'm going to eat healthy, and then by it's 3 p.m. you're like eating a bag of Doritos, because that's what I would do. But
yeah, it is a constant. Well, okay, not so much anymore. It is not so much a constant struggle, because I've already lost weight. I've already felt better, so I know how to do it. Like, I have the tools to be able to recreate my past experience, but this time I can do it better.
Yeah.
And so when I first started feeling pain, I associated it with being overweight. So that's when I did the research about anti-inflammatory foods. I didn't get a diagnosis yet. I had actually gone through that whole process, and it started with the keto diet. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the keto diet, and I'm sure that works for so many people, but for me it was so restrictive, and my body was craving a sweet potato. And I started to cry because I was like, I have to eat under 20 carbs and I just want a bite of this.
I want a potato.
Right, because I'm one of those people that gets kind of obsessed with numbers. And if I have my Fitness Pal, I'll make sure I hit it just right. And if I have certain macros, like I'm going to hit it to be keto, I'm going to do it.
Right.
My stubbornness. But what was happening is I was like, why do I need to label this? Why can't I just eat well?
Right.
And then I lost all the weight because I didn't have any stress. Well, no stress of following a diet specifically. I just ate as much whole foods as possible. Drank a lot of water. I needed vitamins because I was deficient in some. And moving my body. I took the pressure off myself and the weight also came off. And then once I had lost that weight, my neck started to hurt a little bit more, but that's probably because I was feeling better, so I was working more.
Right.
But once I did get diagnosed with that, it forces you to sit down. Like it almost pushes you down. Like you've got this thing. And I didn't want it to be me. I didn't want it to be what held me back or became my new identity. I can't do that because my neck hurts. That was something I wanted to be able to say if it was a true thing. But I feel like the more you, this sentence, let me get it. Your experiences, your beliefs are there because of your experiences, and then those same experiences confirm your beliefs. Ooh. So if I'm sitting there going, I believe that I can't do that because my neck hurts, everything around me is going to try to confirm that because we like to be right. But I was like, I don't want this to be what stops me. And so what do I have to do in order to be happy or to feel better? And that, unfortunately, that was, I'm going to have to switch my career over, but not right now. It's a 10-year thing. Or if it did get worse, obviously I would make the sacrifice, but I wasn't going to let it define me.
Right. Yeah. Instead, you kind of like created a balance. Like I'm not going to suffer these things. I'm going to balance them out by going out and working out and eating better. I have this mentality of all or nothing. I don't really know where it came from. Always trying to figure out the source, but I know that it's there, and I have to eat perfect or binge eat. I have to spend big money or save every penny. I have to do a just hair, or like I have to do just this thing, but that's not helpful. It's really not. It's better to have a balance of like not viewing things as black or white, good or bad. Like when it comes to food and having like treats aren't bad. Too much just isn't good. Too much is what gives me inflammation. A piece of like homemade fudge, or like someone brought me a treat, that isn't going to derail me completely. Right.
And then there's not the stress with that. And I don't because with the stress, I was tensing up too. And so it was causing more issues. Yeah. I was really just learning a lot about my body and what I was doing to it by trying to control everything.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I'm still learning about my own body, and I have like now I feel through my like yoga and meditation, I feel like so connected to my body. But I actually worked out since I'm 28. And when I was in 10th grade, I started working out because I was like 140 pounds, and I just wanted to be tough. And so I was like, I got to put some size on. So that's like what started me. But I never, even after high school, from 10th grade until 26, 27, I worked out. I would take maybe a week or two off at the most, but I would always work out. I was always, but like, I really wasn't that healthy. Like I was just working out. I was pretty much just doing the same thing. Like I was going in and I do the bicep curls and I do the bench press, and I did all these things, but I didn't realize that I was like not super connected to my body. And it's still something that I'm exploring. I hope that in like 5 years I'm able to talk about this sentence and be like, yeah, I did this, because it's something, like if you would have asked me 4 years ago, like do you have a connection with your body? I'd be like, yeah, the most powerful connection ever that you don't even understand. But like now I realize that I was an idiot. Like and I think that in what I'm circling at is I worked out I used it for like an aggression thing, like trying to get out my whatever.
Yeah.
And I would go there and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times I was just punishing my body, like not connecting to it. Kind of like that, like the body expression of like looking in the mirror, like, come on, motherfucker. You fat idiot, like those sort of things. Like that was kind of like a lot of my, not like super putting down that fat idiot might be intense, but like, these things that we kind of actually say to ourselves when we're working out, like you got to push yourself. But I think that I've learned to like be soft with myself and be like, come on, man, like explore that. Like you love your body. Like it's this different conversation. And like I don't really go to gyms now. I have like a fun workout now. And when I'm like, oh, I need to like get some good, like a good workout in or some good miles in, I plan a long run or I plan a hike. I think that we look at fitness, working out, as something completely separate than anything else in our life. I think that like people like you who are finding like more of a holistic, like all of this is health, all of this is fitness, like we can't go into the gym and just say, all right, punish yourself and get through it. It's like, as you're in the gym, you're also working on your posture. You're working on your self-confidence. You're working on your self-talk. You're working on all these things.
I think the video that I posted this morning for Wyld Wellness was all about that. Like
Really?
Self-love or self-hate. You have a choice. Yeah.
Break down the video. I didn't watch it.
Okay. So mind you, I edited a couple this morning too. So the one that I believe that was posted this morning was the self-love and self-hate. And I think I started it off by saying like, if you wanted to help someone, or rather point someone's behavior out to get them to change, what would work better? Calling them out, calling them a stupid fat idiot, or saying like, hey, I noticed this. This is, bothering me. What can we do to solve that? Like, which one of those would actually have a better outcome?
Obvious.
Yeah. The second option.
Yeah.
And so why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we think that calling ourselves a stupid idiot in the gym, or like I am guilty of that, like grabbing my own fat and saying like, oh God, I'm disgusting. I need to go to the gym.
Making a joke about it, self-deprecating joke.
Ugh, it's awful. And it is something that it's a habit to break. And that's like my specialization with my coaching. I'm a habit change specialist because it's the choices that we make over and over and over that become our habits. And when we get stuck in certain habit loops, that's when we notice that we are gaining a little bit of weight or we are more negative. But if you can break that cycle by making another choice and another choice and another choice, your habits will shift and you'll be a different person. Just in the gym. So if you notice, that's what it is. So we're often either completely oblivious to what we're doing, and then there starts to be this judgmental side of us that's like, oh my God, I am being a jerk to myself, but I'm going to keep doing it because it obviously works. And then if you can go one step beyond that and be curious, like, why am I being a jerk to myself? Is there another way? Yeah. Is there a different way? Yeah, there's other choices to make. And they're like, but I don't know what that will bring me. Okay, so a visualization for this is, say you're walking through a jungle and there's already a path that's blazed. You want to take that because you know everything about it. It's the easiest route. But what if what you actually want is just a little like bushwhack away? You just have to like clip away at the vines and everything and blaze a new trail to what you actually desire. Right. That happens with habit change. So like at the gym, if you're sitting there being rude to yourself, notice it, acknowledge what you're trying to do. You're like, oh, I'm trying to motivate myself, but there is another way. So let's try it. And so that's what I had to do that because I've gained and lost like 70 pounds a couple times now. And with my neck injury, I had to slow down at the gym. I did get, kind of sad about it. So I was eating differently, even though that doesn't help me. But then I realized what was happening, getting control of it again. I started to be mean to myself. I started to notice. And now I'm like, no, look at how cool my body is. Anytime my neck starts to flare up, it's giving me a signal.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Look how cool my body is. I like that. It's like a huge mindset change.
I can run. I can run more than I think that I can.
Right.
I can lift more than I think that I can. I can, it is so interesting how if you take an ailment, like your stomach is aching or your heart is racing, and you actually ask why, or what could I do, you give yourself some power back. Like, it's a signal from your body. It's telling you something. Like, even anxiety is it's so awesome that more and more people are talking about anxiety disorders and everything. But it's a signal from your body.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
I think that we love a diagnosis because it tells us what's going on, but then we think we need to sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's my prison sentence.
This is me. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, here's a diagnosis. Here's this thing that's happening. Here's this thing that you're feeling. It's real. Look at it. Realize it. Cool. Now what? Now how do you make your life better?
Exactly.
Or what is it telling you? Is there things that you need to maybe step back on and focus on a little more or a little less or whatever it is? You talked about when you got here, it reminded me of something that Simon Sinek said about like excitement versus nervousness. Like the feeling, if you separate the thoughts, just empty your thoughts whatever way you can, and you just feel that feeling. It's super similar, if not the exact same feeling, excitement versus nervousness. Simon Sinek, who's an author that I really like, he talks about he's like a leadership trainer too. He has a bunch of lectures on YouTube if anybody wants to check him out. He's fucking awesome. But he has this thing where he's afraid of flying. He's like very nervous on flights. And so he's sitting on the plane, and it starts to get turbulence, and he's like, okay, instead of being terrified and having the cold sweats or whatever it is, I'm just going to say, this is exciting. This is exciting. Because think about, if you're on a roller coaster, you chose to get on a roller coaster. You're choosing to be terrified. Like, it's just all your brain's perception of it, right? It is exciting. So, and it sounds silly and it sounds contrived, but if you're a person listening who has anxiety, who has just like nervousness, like what, even if it's just a soft one, even if it's a big one, just try it saying, this is actually exciting. This is exciting. And see like what your brain does, and see if your brain like feels this sort of like excitement. So how did you start like framing your mind in a different way? So like you would feel nervousness, but you were talking about when you got here, you notice it as excitement now. If it was like 10 years ago and you were feeling nervous and you had to talk to your 10 years ago self, what would you tell them? Like, listen.
If this was 10 years ago, I would have said no to doing the podcast because it's way outside my comfort zone. Like, I don't ever want to put myself.
Well, good for you. I'm super glad you're here.
Yeah, I don't want to sound foolish ever, or like I don't want to talk about something that I don't know 100%. But in that case, none of us should be talking because we never know anything.
Right.
But 10 years ago to now, man, the mind shift that I've had is very significant. I mean, 20 to 30 is a huge learning like age.
Yes, yeah.
So now what I am able to do is separate myself from my thoughts. Like, I am not my thoughts. Because every once in a while I have a really shitty thought about myself or maybe another person. That's not who I am. Those are just thoughts. They're there. They just flow all day long. There they are. And every once in a while, like one pops up and we pay more attention to it. And so I was like, why did that thought pop up in my head? Actually take the moment to be like, what does that mean? Is it real? No. Like, it's a real thought, but is it a real thing? Yeah. Like, I acknowledge it and put it aside. If it's important, I'll put it over here and deal with it later. Or if it's just like a passing little fleeting thought, like it can go away on to the next thing. Yeah. That's definitely, I do that a lot now. It's just being able to like step outside and observe yourself, your thoughts, your actions, and does that align with where you want to be? Because we all have pasts, guys. Pasts are things we don't, some people are perfect, but some of us
I'm
have.
far from that.
Yeah, I've done some things I'm not proud of, and like, can I necessarily make up for those things? No, but I can change the way that I do everything. And to me, like, it does help me feel better about everything that I've gone through, everything that I've done. It led me to right where I'm at. And from this point, that's when I have the power to make the choices that align with the life that I see for myself.
Right. I love that.
Everyone has that power.
Yeah, that's what I keep trying to like point out here is that moment when you're on the trail and you're going on the trail. Then when you notice you're on the trail, that right there, the noticing is all it takes. The noticing, like, okay, I'm on this trail. Like, where am I? Like, what is this trail? Do I want to go into the bushes over here? Do I want to go check those out? Like, you can stop running on the trail for a dang second. And this is a metaphor. We're not talking about hiking all of a sudden, but yeah, that I think that Joe Rogan has this thing. I watch a lot of like motivational YouTube videos. A lot of times I wake up and my depression tries to strangle me a little bit. And so the first thing I do is like, nope, ain't happening today. And so I put some like motivational stuff on.
Yeah.
And again, later, just as a side note, again, later I look at like, okay, it seems that maybe I was having some problems with sleep. I was having some maybe nightmares. Let's look at that. Maybe I was eating something wrong before bed. It was kind of triggering these, whatever. So
yeah, get curious.
Yeah, so that's definitely a thing. But when I wake up in the morning, I put on these motivational videos. There's one that I listen to, Joe Rogan's voice actually, and these people edit it together. Essentially, they show. Have you seen the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper?
No.
It's essentially they show him at the beginning of the movie, and he's like, imagine this is your superhero movie right now. This is your life. Today is the first opening scene, and you're the piece of shit before he gets his shit together.
Yes.
You're the, and don't call yourself a piece of shit, but if that's what you need that day to like, I need to change. You see yourself as like the loser, like you don't have a lot of money and your apartment's dirty. This is like the scene they paint, and then you just kind of like all of a sudden you realize like, damn it, like I gotta do something different. Like I gotta walk on my hero's journey here. I gotta like we've seen all these movies where like at the beginning where the people just weren't fully there. We've seen Thor. We've seen I think like Captain America has been awesome all the time, but just all these superheroes, all these people in these movies who at the beginning they were just not proud of themselves, and maybe they did things that they didn't want to they didn't believe in, and now they're punishing themselves for it. But what you can do is you can wake up today, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, whatever day it is, and you could say, I'm done with that.
Yes.
I'm not doing that, And I think that like that is one of the most powerful things that like a human can hear sometimes is like, dude, whatever happened yesterday, you can't rewind time unless you know how to build like a time machine. That's pretty intense, but I think it's a great thing, and I think it's empowering, and it's given me a lot of power because I have a lot of the same like self-hate thoughts and a lot of self-shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of things that everybody has, but what I say is I come out here and I say, I'm not perfect and I haven't always been, and I don't expect you to be, but like you can say today's the first day of your hero's movie, and you could start getting to work. You could start clean one pan, and if you have a sink full of dishes, clean one pan. Yes. Whatever you got to do.
Make that choice.
Yeah.
I am pretty open and honest about like my depression as well. And that's when it got really, really, really bad and I was having the suicidal thoughts and everything. What I realized then is it's about choice again. Like there was too much to live for and too many people that would have been affected. So I felt like I wasn't going to make that choice. So since I'm not, what choices could I make to help build me back up? And I was on a really long drive when I was at my lowest point. But when I got to my destination, that's when I went to the grocery store. I got the proper foods. I got water. I sat down and I started writing. I wrote. This is where like action comes into play. And that is so important to sit there and be curious. Like, why do I feel this way? Not just repeating, I'm broken, I'm sad, I can't do this. Like that constant repetition, you start to truly, it's your identity. You believe it. It is your belief. It is your experience. Yeah. Oh, the second part of that quote that I said, where your beliefs and your experiences coexist. Like, all experiences are available at all times.
Whew. I love that.
That's what I'm gonna write on your wall.
Yeah, I definitely need that on the wall.
Because we forget. Yeah. We forget that all experiences are available at all times. If you are on your rock bottom, you don't have to stay there. You can feel those things, but then you can also self-analyze. And that's what I did on a piece of paper. I wrote down every single thing that was overwhelming to me, that I felt that I had failed at, that I just, like a bad list almost. I just needed to get it out on paper and look at it. And like that doesn't seem very constructive, but the next part is. On the flip side of the paper, I literally wrote what to do about it. Each bullet point I found a solution for. And then from that day, which was that was last May, it was kind of like after the diagnosis, and that there was a lot more to the diagnosis than just being told that. It's like family stuff. But when I was at my absolute low point, that was the only way that I could try to get better. I was like, okay, what I'm doing is not working anymore. What could I do different? And that's when I made that list. And on every day I looked at all the things, and then I would flip the paper over and what could I do about it? And I started to do those things, and pretty soon on the bad side, started getting crossed off because they were non-existent.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's the crazy, that's something that when you realize like, oh shoot, like it's only been 2 weeks or it's been 2 months or whatever, and like I actually don't do that thing anymore. Like I actually don't have that thought, or like something that you literally 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, before you wrote it down, like that's your identity. Like that's a daily thought. Like sometimes self-hate thought, you're not worthy thought, whatever it may be, or like just trying to conceptualize it. It's crazy to see that you can unwind that. I had a thing that I wrote that was like, it was essentially like a dream list. It was like one day I want to like do this. Ooh. Like this is my perfect day. And it was like a pipe dream when I wrote it. And I actually had put it up on the wall, and I had so much shit on the wall that I like a bunch of those thoughts. And a few months later, I went back through, and it was like a weird moment. Like before I went to bed, I'd grabbed it off the wall. I didn't even plan on it. And I was just like glancing at it. I don't even know like what led me to do this. And I had this like just softening in my whole body. I was reading it and just started bawling. I was like, oh my God, I did all these things today. And like, it was down to silly things for me. I was like, record a podcast with this person, or, something like even just little goals, but also mental things. I think I got to ask you something. Do you think that writing is magic? Because I think that writing is actual magic.
Yeah. What? Okay. So obviously I was writing Randall letters, love letters. And what would happen is anytime we'd have like a disagreement or something, I would take to writing. And then because my hand would just move very quickly and I would just pour it onto the paper, I actually learned a lot about myself. Yeah. It helped me figure out issues. And then I feel like putting pen to paper, it's your reality. What I was doing was my reality. It was taking all my thoughts and putting on paper, and then I could actually read it back to myself. I'm like, do I like the story that I'm creating for myself? Right. Like, well, no, we have the option to create a different one.
I'm just trying to think of like people who write it down and they're like, well, okay, what does this do? How do you okay, so you write something down. I'm just trying to think. I feel like when I would write something down, you separate yourself. It's almost like that's not me or something. Like it's almost like this weird it's like a conversation with yourself that you have to be willing to partake in when you write, right? It's like how did you conceptualize, like you write it down, and then how do you not turn that into like self-hate again? Because a lot of times I would write down like, oh, you write these things, and then I'd look at it and be like, you're a daydreaming fool. You're
about the good stuff that you wanted to do.
Yeah. Do you ever have anything like that? Like you write it down, like, because I always say, like on this podcast, I preach like write it down and it's magic, right? But sometimes you write it down and you don't really, like some people just don't have the self-love to write it and then I guess see it as something they can change.
Yeah. From a coaching standpoint, if someone says like, I wrote down this list and it just makes me feel stupid, like I'll never accomplish it, blah, blah, blah. I would say like, what is that trying to teach you? What could you learn from that? Like, what would having those things do for you? And then we start talking about the more positive things that it could bring. Or every once in a while, someone has like an ecology issue where I'm going to go always back to weight loss. It's like the easiest thing for me to talk about right now. But if it's like weight loss, or like, I want to wear a bikini at the beach. I want to not get the belt extender on the airplane. I want to do these things. I'm like, but I'll never do that. I never could. I'm like, okay. And we talk about what would having those things do for them and bring them joy and comfort, and like they'd be in family pictures, and we find the why. But every once in a while, that why is because their whole family is overweight, and if they lost the weight, they wouldn't fit in anymore. Or like say that when it comes to diet or a family event, they're like, well, I have to eat those mashed potatoes. Why? And then we work through a series of questions that gets it to like, well, I don't want to hurt my auntie's feelings because she's always made those for me, and that's how we connect. So it's kind of like being explorative with yourself and your mind. And there's always a reason why there's something holding you back. We just have to figure out what it is. Yeah.
And I think keeping going and diving into it. I mean, honestly, even just like still writing, a lot of times you can almost figure that stuff out for yourself. But I think it's cool that you're able to offer people like, okay, that's fine. Like you wrote that. That's what's going on. Now let's take a look at it. How do you work with people, and even in your own life, when it comes to the family dynamics is pretty like wanting change. Like so it's difficult to be like, okay, I'm on this serious diet. Like I've been on, say I'm on Whole30, right? I'm eating this certain way. And then you go to a family dinner And it really is like this, I'm not going to paint every like older person, but like everybody's mom, everybody's aunt is kind of a jerk about it. Like it seems like it's very difficult. Like you almost don't want to like make it a big deal. You would rather just say no to the mashed potatoes, but it seems like this big old thing. Dealing with family not at first accepting your change. Do you have any? I think that's a big one.
Yeah. Own it. You have to own it. If it's your truth, own it. And then it becomes like, if they're going to make fun of it, doesn't matter. It's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if they're not supporting you, it doesn't mean that they don't love you. It just means that they're not comfortable doing it yet. And they don't have to. It's not their journey. It's yours. It's your decision. Do what you want and come prepared. And if that means coming prepared with your own Whole30 meal, cool. Right. Or bring something Whole30-ish for the family to share. But also come prepared for other people's shitty comments because they're going to be there.
Yeah.
They just are. Anytime that someone changes a part of themselves, there's some observer or family member that's used to you fitting in the box that they put you in. So if you step out of it, I'm going to change, I'm going to do these things. Sometimes it makes other people uncomfortable, but it doesn't. They're uncomfortable. Okay, my favorite saying too is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Ooh. Because if your family member is uncomfortable and starts attacking you, that makes you feel weird about the way they feel. But you're ignoring your own self. You're ignoring your own feelings because you're trying to keep them comfortable.
I like that.
So sit there for a second. Just be like, oh, they're upset. I'm not eating how they want me to eat. That's an interesting observation. But my goals are this, and I'm going to stick to my food.
Yeah.
This is my truth. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think it's hard with families, you know. Families are always something that, like, I have a different weird family dynamic, but I imagine that for other people who are like very close to their family, like if you do have your aunt's famous mashed potatoes all the time, like there is literally probably like at first she's going to get generally like kind of upset if you're not eating the mashed potatoes, you know. I think that, but when you can open up these conversations and when you could be stern with yourself, I think that when you start seeing yourself as an adult in your family, when you start saying like, if I just walked up to your house and I didn't know any of you people, you would respect me as a grown man, as a grown woman. But like for some reason, I seem to be allowing myself to slip into this 15-year-old version of myself just because we came home on the holiday.
Oh, yeah. You know? Oh, yes.
We do that in so many ways. But I think that, with family, when you really start, not being mean, but just being stern, just being like owning it, like you said,
setting boundaries.
Yeah. Do you find, or do you have in any of the people that you've also taught these things to, do you find that their families start coming around eventually, or where do you think?
Certain family members, but it's also important to remember that you can't let other people be the main influence to your own happiness. Because if you did that, you'd never be happy because you'd spend all your time trying to make sure everyone else was happy.
People pleasing.
Yeah. And I know that personally, and with the clients, I hear it a lot. Absolutely, whether it's the hairdressing or the coaching. And that's just, it's not a fun place to be, or you're waiting for something else to be happy. That's a big one too. Because my favorite question to ask people is like, what do you want? Because people are chronically misunderstood and people don't listen. We listen to respond. We don't listen to understand. Mm-hmm. And so by asking someone like, what do you want? They open up big time. And then from there, we'll talk about the family dynamics and like what they can foresee being an issue. And let's go back to Auntie's potatoes. Communication is everything. If you're that close to that aunt that you feel like you need to eat the potatoes to make her happy, why can't you have a conversation saying like, hey, Auntie, like I got diagnosed with heart disease. I can't eat that kind of stuff anymore. Would it be okay if I brought an alternative? Or would it be okay if I just didn't put it on my plate? Would you understand?
Right.
Like, well,
maybe pull him to the side and tell him.
Yeah.
Just roast Granny.
Yeah. Carol.
Auntie.
Carol's there.
Auntie Carol. Carol's always there. You know what's funny is one of my she's since passed, but I actually have a grandma. Her name was Carol, and for some reason, like every time I'm just making fun of an old lady on this podcast, I just name her Carol. In my head, I feel like I mentioned Carol. She's a real.
My grandma's name is Carol too.
Oh, sorry, Carol. I'm just talking about her moo-moo. So we have... I want to make sure we cover all of our bases here. I love jumping around in casual conversation, but I always want to make sure that we bring it back to like what you're trying to tell the world here.
I know there's so many different like facets?
I was gonna go with faucets.
Whatever. There's so many faucets out there.
So many sinks, faucets,
Faucets,
kitchen
and
sinks.
facets.
Yeah.
There's different avenues.
Yeah.
And there's so many, especially when you're in the beginning stages of really learning stuff. There's so much interesting knowledge that you want to share with the world and everything. Mm-hmm. So it is hard to like pinpoint it down, bring it down to a niche of some sort. And that's like, at the end of the day, that's why what I do is labeled like habit change. Because I want to be able to remind people that they do have control of their life.
Right.
If you don't like your relationship, we can work together to get you to where you want to be. Like whether that's fixing the relationship or trying to like mend things, mm-hmm. or to get out of it. Or if you don't like your job, is there a conversation that needs to happen with your boss or like your coworkers, surroundings? Or do we need to get you set up for a different career opportunity? Right. It's every single person seems to have something so vastly like different, but it all stems around making choices, like the right choices instead of the ones that we're used to making, our like normal habits.
It's almost like it's this thing where you realize you have choices, mm-hmm. right? Like we go our whole life just doing the same things, and we're like, "Fine, it sucks when that happens." But we don't realize that at some point you can just put a wedge in it and be like, "I'm gonna do this now," mm-hmm. Like just change it up.
And sometimes people are too scared to change it up, and that's why mm-hmm. we offer the let's see what happens. You can always come back to your old behaviors, but why not see what happens? Mm-hmm. Do you like that experience? Okay, now let's try something more and see what happens. How was that? It just sets up like little tiny baby steps to make people more comfortable with the shift, because right. That's the black and white mentality sometimes is like just completely shutting a door and running into a different direction. Like that's not always for everybody.
Yeah, you got to be able to take a look at it. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, what's your experience with, I use the word mental health with my podcast. It's a mental health podcast. And sometimes I have a little fear that it gets thrown into like, oh, only if you have severe depression and you want to kill yourself should you listen to my podcast. Like, or like mental health is something that people, it's either a fad that they get into, they think, or they think that it's a something that's like when I get to where I need it, that's mm-hmm. where I'll. But I think that mental health is something that with this crazy, crazy world, the way that we're living as humans, the way that our minds work, we're understanding our minds in different new ways. We're becoming aware of many things that 50 years ago humans just weren't aware of. Mm-hmm. I think that mental health is for everybody. I think that what's your experience with people who I'm trying to word it. People who don't want help, but I'm just thinking of people who avoid things like this, conversations like this, because they're doing just fine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, and not that everybody, like, I think everybody could be better. That's always a cool thing, you know. But I think a lot of times people are suffering their own self without realizing it.
Yeah. Mental health does have some sort of like stigma to it. It's becoming more and more like socially, I don't want to use the word acceptable, but people have a better understanding of what it means because people are being honest about it. Mm. And yeah, there is that like stigma behind it. And sometimes it is a push with clients to get them to open up about their thought processes. But that's when I just kind of like veer it a different way and we start talking about physical health or like where they're at spiritually or financially, just kind of helping people open up a little bit. And then that often turns into the way that they're thinking about stuff. And then I just say like, oh, this is an opportunity to talk about the mental health part of it. And if they recoil a little bit, I just pause. I let them sit there in their own discomfort. And then normally they soften. 100% of the time so far, they've just softened and been like, okay, tell me more. Tell me, okay, what do I do? What are my options? Because even though they're not able to fully understand how to make options for themselves, they at least are starting to understand that they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the biggest things is realizing that they're there. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you started writing, like just figuring it out. Like you just sat down, started writing. I mean, I like when I was just super bummed, like when I first started writing on this wall, that was kind of how it was. It was just like too many nights of coming home and just falling on the floor crying. This time I was like, let's sit here crisscross applesauce with a Sharpie in my hand and figure out what the hell I'm thinking.
Yeah,
you know?
wrote it down and you were doing something creative, so you were breaking your cycles.
Yeah. Breaking cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, how do you, what's your, I might jump into like too spiritual or too metaphysical here, but what's your thoughts on like breaking family cycles? Like I have like following my history, like of my family tree, like there's just like depression, suicide, mental breakdowns, like it's just on both sides, it's everywhere. And I had a few homies over last night or like last week. We had a few beers, we had a podcast, and we started talking. We got on this page of like all three of us in this room had like very similar experiences when we were young. Like we started talking about those, and we kind of had this moment of pride where we're like, you know what, we're fucking breaking that though. Like we're not like, yeah, our dads did that to us. Yeah, our family had that happen. But dang guys, like we're in this room breaking that cycle. And a lot of times there's books and there's all these things of like breaking the trans-dimensional curse or whatever. I'm using words like the breaking a family curse, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have these things like, my family's always been like this, and I was taught how to be like this since I was 15 or whatever. But we're discovering now, like we can start changing and making our own choices and be like, okay, that was how it was for my family, for my lineage, my DNA, but like that's not how it's going to be when I have kids. It's
Absolutely
not an option, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You think that's like a thing, like just breaking those curses, those, right?
Yeah, it's a definite thing.
Yeah.
Yes, me and my cousin, we sit down and we talk about this often because even though we have different sets of parents, it's from the same upbringing. Mm. And we both went through situations that we didn't know each other went through, even though we're only a couple years apart, because there's like the family secrets too. Right. And so part of being able to break those cycles is to recognize that they were there in the first place. Because do you ever, I mean, as a human and you get worked up, you ever end up saying something that you wish that you didn't say? Yeah. But you don't want to be wrong, so you're going to stand there and be right.
Yeah. You like bury yourself, protect yourself from that wrong thing you said.
Yeah. Or you just keep pushing. Like that's a family thing for me. And yeah, it takes a lot of effort to break the cycle, but it is possible. And that's one of those things about being able to step outside yourself and ask, like, was that the best reaction? Or actually pay attention to how it affected the person that you're talking to. Mm. Like, oh, I saw that hurt them. Like, crap, that might have been my intention, but I don't like how it feels. That's an opportunity for you to like shut your mouth for 1 second, sit there in that feeling, and then make a choice to correct it. Right. That's the first step.
I agree. I think, gosh, it just keeps, everything we've been saying just comes back to like this noticing. That awareness, like that moment of like, give yourself a second.
Yeah, notice it, acknowledge it, and then if you feel like it's not suiting you anymore, change it. Right. And if you don't know how, reach out for help, or do the research on the internet, or ask a friend, or ask the person that you're talking to. Mm-hmm. I have to do that because I was raised in a really rigid home, so I have those rigid habits of my own, and I wasn't allowed to make a lot of choices growing up. They were made for me. And so as an adult, when I make one, that's it. No one can change my mind. So all I am doing is repeating the cycle. So now even though it's my habit to be that way, and I feel like I can't possibly have a conversation, I have to be so like, this is what I want. This is my choice. You can't tell me not to do it or change my mind in any way. I see the reaction on my husband's face, and then I'm like, okay, can I try that again? Oh, great. And that's what breaks the cycle, is just by simply asking, like, can I try that again?
And how does he leave you room for these?
Absolutely.
I think that's the receiving side is a huge thing. Like if you're on the other side of someone, like clearly like you love this person and they're just a little frustrated. They're trying to figure out what they think. And, you know, sometimes we say things we don't mean. Sometimes we like kind of mean with what we say it or whatever in an argument or something. But I love that he's like willing to like allow you to like the room to say like, all right, yeah, let's redo that.
Yeah, he's granted me so much room to grow as a person, whereas my past relationship, not so much, you know? Mm-hmm. Like it's so nice having a partner that's always trying to be better than themselves too. So we do give each other that leniency to grow. And sometimes one of us is sitting there while the other person is like doing growth.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're not completely on the same level, but then we sit down and talk about that too. And that's, I don't know, it's all about communication and recognizing what's going on. And then just when it comes to those family cycles and stuff, if you don't like how things are, if you don't like how it feels, you can change it.
You can get up, you can stand up, and you can do something differently.
Yeah, and habits are hard to break. Sometimes they just come out of your mouth, but you can say, I'm sorry, that's something I'm trying to change.
Right.
Can I try to word that differently?
I think that when you're honest about stuff like that, like this podcast, for example, like sometimes I put my foot in my mouth and I kind of say the wrong thing, or I for some reason I seem to be I always mix up the words serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin, and I say that incorrectly. But I'll listen back, and sometimes we're so afraid of saying the wrong thing because do you think it's because our world, our media, our whatever has always been remember this person said this thing 25 years ago, they said this one wrong sentence, and now they'll
replay the clip.
Yeah. But I think that we're going to start realizing that every one of us has said some stupid shit once or twice or 50 times or 50 times a day. We're not simply our words, because when you ask somebody oh, what did you mean? And you just give them a little bit of room, they'll be like,
that's it too. If you're standing there and you're not quite sure what the other person means, ask.
Right.
Don't assume that you know what someone is trying to say if it's not completely clear.
Right.
Ask questions. Be curious.
Yeah.
I have think, conversations.
Gosh, in being able to ask questions. So this is we're shifting from that position for that person of the receiving end. So someone is talking, asking questions. Okay, you don't understand it. You're on the receiving end. Someone's trying to explain to you. You're a little frustrated. You're like, what are you trying to say here? You're on the receiving end of this conversation, listener. I think realizing that a lot of us have places that we're coming from. We have pre-opposed, what's the word I'm looking for? When a homeless man walks up to you, this is going to be a stretch, but hang with me. When a homeless man walks up to you versus when your mom walks up to you, think about your body language. Mm-hmm. So when a homeless man walks up to you, you're not totally comfortable. Maybe he doesn't give the appearance that he's well kept, that he's well sane.
Oh, yeah.
These are obvious things. I'm not saying it's a judgment on the homeless man, but we have
safety.
Yeah, we have areas that we come with. So when we're talking to the homeless man, it is going to be a different side of our mind, a different conversation, a different place we're sitting in. Than it is if our mom's talking to us. Mm-hmm. Or someone that you love that you're talking to, you're going to leave them so much room because you're I know you so well. I know that you don't mean to hurt me with what you're saying. But a lot of times when it's a homeless person, they walk up to you and they say, hey, this thing, you automatically assume whatever they're saying is just selfish or it's whatever. You don't leave them the same room as someone you love.
Because you're judging them.
Yeah.
It's that immediate judgment.
Yeah. I think we have different judgments on different types of people, different mm-hmm. situations in our life. I had a small video on my YouTube that was picking up a piece of trash. And it was the way that the piece of trash was a coffee cup. The way that I would hold a coffee cup that's mine is warm. And I want my fingers to really feel it. And I love it. And I hold it close to my body. But when I picked up a piece of trash in this YouTube video, this is also I want to tell everybody I pick up trash. But I picked up the trash and I was holding it with two fingers. And I wasn't fully touching it because it's garbage, mm-hmm. right? But it's a coffee cup. It's the exact same thing that if I purchased it with my own money, I'd be holding it close to my heart. I'd be gripping it. I'd be feeling the warmth of the coffee. But when we pick up a piece of trash, we're kind of we hold it away. Mm-hmm. I think that we treat conversations like this sometimes. We come to the conversation, not assuming the other person's trash, but we're kind of holding them with two fingers, mm-hmm. Kind of outwards, you're saying this thing. Mm-hmm. But and if it starts to make sense now, that's kind of the way we treat a homeless person. But when it's your cup of coffee, it's someone you love. You give them the grace. You give them the room that they need to tell you, oh shoot, I didn't mean to say that, or I mean here's my intention.
Ooh. Some people are the opposite too, because when it's family, you know them, so you can be more aggressive or more assertive, and then they're just supposed to deal with it. Or if it was a stranger, you might have more compassion because you don't want to be seen in a certain way.
Yeah, we do flip that all around.
Yeah, that's in every situation we ever talk about. There is multiple perspectives to have, but isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So that's when it's just about being curious. When you feel yourself have any kind of emotion, whether it's you're scared of a bear, mm-hmm. or you're fearful or questioning why a homeless person would be approaching you, or your mom walks in the room lovingly, no matter what it is, if you're just curious, just if you feel yourself feel a thing, just get curious about what it means.
Right. Because so many times we can paint ourselves into these corners of thinking they mean this thing or thinking they're assuming this, but it's like, okay, wait, I know that you're a good person. You don't mean me harm with what you're saying. It seems like what you just said was a little intense. Like what, like let them have some room to reword it if they want to, you know?
Yes. And that comes full circle with the repeating the family stuff too, is like often with your family, you're comfortable to act like a little shit sometimes.
Right. A total brat too.
Yeah. And what about with your loved ones? Like, is it okay to vent your whole day to them? Like, and to take it out on them?
Right.
No.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So do you ever do that? Like when you had a bad day, you just want to like get a hold of your loved one and just tell them everything about it and just like, because there's a balance of just having someone that you can share at all times. I think Facebook does this for us. As soon as something bad happens, we have a place that we can go vent about that bad thing.
Both of my career fields, whether it's hairdressing and the coaching, there's confidentiality behind that. So like, yes, the day could weigh very heavy on me, but I can't repeat it. So if I need to get it out there, like to my husband, I will say, do not ask me any questions. Do not ask me who it is. Just listen to this.
Right.
If the weight got too heavy on my back. But then there's another little tidbit for you guys. If you are in a career field where you carry a lot of weight from other people's stories, or if like you're around certain people that steal your energy or just add a lot to your plate. I don't remember who came up with this, but the threshold theory. So when I was in the salon and I would get that information, at the end of the day, I would flip off the light switch and then I would walk through a threshold. I'd leave that shit inside the salon door and shut it because that's my job. I chose this. It's a blessing that people open up to me, and it's not a burden. It just, I'm empathetic.
Yeah.
So I carry it. But that's my role during a work hour. Then I'm a wife. Like, then you're a mom. Then you're a husband when you walk through your home door. So if you, like, visually, you're walking through a threshold, be a better person. Be a better spouse. Step into those shoes. Like, be able to leave it at the door. So that's definitely something that I had to work on, because if I were to tell someone the things that I hear, then they have to carry it too. And it's not their job. They're not trained to be able to separate that, because there's a compassion, but it's slightly disconnected. I don't have to feel your pain. I just have to listen to it. And as a professional, I'm able to do that. Like it helps it so other people can tell their full story and be completely heard, is someone else isn't trying to feel it for them. I'm here to listen.
Yeah, I kind of, as you were talking about it, I was kind of envisioning like a monk. Like, say you're talking to a monk, I feel like he'd be so calm. You're just like, oh, this thing happened and this thing happened. He's just sitting there. He'd be so calm. Like, he would take that from you just fine, but then he wouldn't like push it back out in that same way to anybody else in his own way of stories. He would calmly handle that, and he would I don't know, amicably like allow you to release it, I guess. I think that's super incredible.
Yeah, when people open up about stuff, I'm just there to hold the space, and then when they tell me what they want or what it would do for them, I get to remind them why they sat down in my chair in the first place.
Oh, right.
Like, remind people of their why. So if they spill their guts to me and I sit there like a monk, calm, I just hold on to all the information. Sometimes I jot it down to have it for later. And often those things come up again, and I'm able to remind them, like, either why they happened or what we can do to prevent them in the future, or sometimes it's the things that they are crying about. It's what they most desire. So I can pull that out too. So it's like, so I'll handle all the things that you say with care, but I'm also going to like file it just in case.
Right. I like that. That's good. And I really like the part where you said you turn off the lights, and that's like your threshold you walk through. So that's kind of like when I say you give things power. That's like you made like this like ritual. So for this, if I'm understanding right, you're like at the end of the day, you're like, cool, okay, I'm turning this off. I have all whatever's going through my head. I just heard about Cynthia's divorce, and I just heard about Claudia's car broke down, and like all these things. And so when you walk through that threshold, it's like this moment you give yourself. I'm walking from this door to this door in the dark, and you're just like letting it. I'm keeping this here. Like you're kind of I love that. I just wonder how can we empower other people to insert parts like that into their life? Because I think I do have, when I walk in here in the morning, I say, good morning, Junkyard Love. every morning.
That's
And I think that that's
beautiful.
that's actually my like, whatever, like I said, sometimes I'm going through, I wake up and sometimes my mornings just aren't so great right away. I got to kind of insert my own stuff. But I do have that. Good morning, Junkyard Love is what I say every morning when I walk down here. I think that's kind of a,
You're like blessing your space.
yeah,
You're acknowledging it and like thanking it, like, good morning.
I think that's important.
What if people did that to themselves?
More people do that to themselves. And even if they don't own their own business, their own whatever, like I think just walking, like you have coworkers, you work at another salon or you work at somewhere else with other people, like say it under your breath. Like, you know, give yourself that power when you walk in.
Mm-hmm. Or even looking in the mirror and doing it. That is an interesting exercise.
Tell me about mirror work. Have you done mirror work?
Yeah. Here's the simplest exercise for people to try. Look in the mirror, look yourself like in the eye the best that you can, and tell yourself you like say, I love you. Can you do it?
Yeah.
So many people cannot.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Like, I don't know. It feels weird.
I'm like, I feel stupid. I'm not doing that.
It feels
Because
contrived.
I didn't love myself then. It was such a bizarre exercise, and it took a long time for me to be able to look in the mirror and start pointing out the things that I love instead of the things that I hate.
Yeah, I have a. Pardon me while I wipe my nose here, but I have a friend, Nate. He talks about how he used to actually get ready in the dark. He's like a motivational speaker now and stuff, but he talks about how he hated himself so much, and he didn't even realize he was doing it or why he was doing it. He just thought, like, I just don't turn the lights on in the morning. He hated looking at himself in the morning because he was ashamed of who he was and what he was doing. But he then started like realizing he was doing it, started looking in the mirror, and then like it's hard. It's really hard. And again, it feels weird, right? It feels like fake and contrived. And like, what am I doing? Like if somebody walked into this room, I'd be so embarrassed. But like that shit has power. Look yourself in the mirror. Like, yeah, I mean, Nate told me, you know, it's got power for him. What do you say? So like, do you ever have like conversations with yourself in the mirror? Like,
let's see. Yeah. It's mostly if I find myself being the opposite of what I'm trying to be. I'll make myself say out loud the opposite of what I am initially thinking. Like if I'm looking in the mirror and I just like, I don't know, have disgust happening, then I will notice that and then stand there and be like, okay, I am not disgusting. I'm awesome. Like,
yeah.
I have beautiful eyes. Like, just start. It feels weird even saying it out loud on podcasts because it feels vain in some way. I'm like, no, it's self-love. Why is it so easy for us to tear each other or ourselves apart? And then it's really hard to give compliments to ourselves or to take a compliment.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that too. I mean, that's something that I'm still, I like Shayla and I've been talking about a lot lately. I close off receiving like so many people message me and are like talk to me and just say thanks for the podcast and thanks for like whatever. And like, I have to make sure now and it's good. And I'm better at it. And I really like it now, but I used to like, literally I would just, the instant thing I would get these texts or whatever. And I would just be like, oh fuck, I need to respond to them. So they like feel important. Like I would literally just reflect as soon as I like deflect it and not actually be like, gosh, you know what, Jake, like you're doing good, man. Like, or, you know, now I'll show Shaylee and I'm like, hey babe, check this out. And she goes, oh, and I go, oh, and we just like hug each other. And I'm just, you know, we're excited for where we're at. But I think you gotta give yourself those like things, right?
Yes. Point out your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Write them down.
Yeah.
So there's another method, and without reviewing my notes, I don't ever remember like who originally thought these things up. But you know how like productivity is often a list and we check it off, a to-do list. And as we go through that list, we start to feel a little bit better as we, you know, tink it off the list. But if we don't complete it, we feel like absolute garbage. We beat ourselves up like, oh, we didn't manage our time correctly. All the blah. We start picking the day apart. I'm a list making mofo.
Yeah. That's
how I feel good. It started to really control my attitude. So then I heard this thing called a to-do list, where if I'm feeling unproductive and then I didn't accomplish anything, or maybe there's 15 things on my list and I only got a couple done, a to-do list is the opposite. Like I'm retraining my brain to have a different outlook. And so what I did that day is all written down, and then I sit there and acknowledge it.
right.
And lately with the gym too, I remember what my body could do 10 years ago. And so as I'm like running or doing something, I can feel myself comparing and despairing to my old habits, like my old self, what I look like, what I could do. And I noticed that. So then in a note section of my phone, it literally says accomplishments, and it says, I ran 5 minutes straight. I lifted this. Like, I showed up today and I didn't want to. I made this choice. And anytime I start to get down at myself, I'm actually like, no, I did these things. Yeah. And I let myself feel the positivity. I let myself celebrate me instead of compare.
Right.
It's awesome.
I think that's so good. You know, we live in this, I think a lot of times people, we get afraid of like tooting our own horn because there's like this ego, like show off sort of thing that we're always so afraid of being. Like we're always like, oh, I don't want to hype myself up because I don't want people to think I'm cocky or whatever. But it's like, dude, you should be cocky, right?
Yeah.
Like you should be talking to yourself like you're awesome. Like you did those things today. And sometimes that like writing something down, like, so say if even on listening, you may do this. Do you ever write anything down just so you can cross it off immediately?
Yes.
Yeah. That's like the best instant dopamine.
I wrote it down
release
because I already did it.
Yeah. Well, no, but seriously, we got to look at how our brains work. Like, listener, if you've ever written a list and you accomplished something and you crossed it off, that felt good as shit, didn't it? Yeah, exactly. Give yourself that. You probably did. Maybe you like didn't hit all your goals today. Maybe it was just kind of a half-assed day, or maybe you're just feeling like I didn't do anything today. I think that you'll find if you do what Rebecca just said, just like write that down. What did you do? A ta-da list, or what is
ta-da.
it? Ta-da.
Yeah, ta-da list.
Yeah.
So even if there's nothing on the ta-da list, like you wake up in the morning, you have this full list of things you're going to do, and then something happened and you just like sit on the couch. It would be really easy to turn around and be like, wow, I really messed up this day.
Right.
Or did you need a day off? What's the positive intention behind you not being able to get off the couch today? Let's honor that. You needed a rest day. You had a crazy day at work. Like maybe you just had a fight with somebody, or like maybe your loss is the weirdest thing on the planet. Something could, someone could pass away, or you could, go through something like that. Right. And then 1 year later, you just find yourself sitting on the couch sobbing about it. What's the positive intention behind sitting on the couch not accomplishing anything? There's always a reason.
Yeah, maybe you just needed to feel that.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's, a lot of our, do you think there's a lot of stuff that we don't slow down enough to give ourselves time to process it?
Yeah.
Too? Like I think there's a lot of that stuff that pops up. I'm guilty of it too.
That's why when someone asks me how I am, I say I'm busy. Is because if I don't stay busy and I'm slow for a minute, tears will just stream down my face because there was so much I wasn't dealing with.
Right. And yeah, but I think when you find little areas of your life, like, okay, I can deal with this part right now, feeling strength for this. I think sometimes that's what life is.
Yeah.
Like you got to almost build your resilience. It's like, I know I got to handle that shit. I got to be resilient before I handle it. So let's like get there.
Well, that's something that happens too when people are feeling that they should honor the sadness, or that they're going through something and they're like, I'll deal with it later. Okay, you can do that. But then it might start to pop up in other areas of your body. Like, are you having a breakout? Or like with me, is my neck hurting more because I'm being tense? Is your bowels, are they acting up? Like the stress, the emotions, you don't handle it, it's going to show up in other areas of your life.
Yeah, I think a majority, not a majority, I don't know, that's a broad thing, but like, man, stomach pains, stomach issues, gas pains, like, holy crap, it's so related to our mental health.
The body keeps score.
Have you read that book?
That's a book.
It's literally a book called The Body Keeps a Score. I have it over there.
Can I borrow it?
I was gonna, well, yes, actually, you could totally borrow it. I started it. I haven't totally gotten through it. It's super good so far. But I did do the thing where I like watched interviews about it, and I read about it on Blinkist. And so in my head, I think that I've read it, but I feel like I didn't. But no, yeah, the body keeps a score. That's like a little bit more in depth, but our body really does hold on to trauma. Something that meditation teaches me is the I don't know, the better at meditation is a weird sentence to say, but the better I get at meditation, the further I progress in my path and my stages. Man, I realize that like I could be sitting there in my meditations and I'm thinking a thought, not realizing I'm thinking it, right? You're lost in thought. And you're like, oh crap. And you remember like, okay, I'm meditating, back to the attention here. But at that moment, you literally feel like your left shoulder blade kind of drop down a little bit. Like it's these weird sort of things. And I can't wait to, you know, in the coming years with like my writing and my research, I really hope to conceptualize this to like really help people out with this. Cause I think it's crazy important. I'm at the beginning of just experiencing it myself.
Same.
And so do you ever have any, for one, are you a meditator or do you meditate?
This is, how much time do we have? No. Okay. So I did try meditation. I'm always seeking calm and quiet and where I can collect my thoughts because my head is chaos. So I try to combat that with calm. And through counseling and different coaching methods and different retreats and stuff, it always kept going back to the person that was giving me instruction when I would say, oh yeah, I just like to sit in my quiet time and like sit in my meditation pillow, have my salt lamp, all the things, like just try to breathe into that. Every single person was like, why don't you dance? Why don't you try something else? And I'm stubborn. So I was like, no, I'm just not good enough at meditation. And they're like, well, how's it working for you?
Ooh.
Way to call me out. Like it works sometimes. Okay. Like, okay, well, what would it feel like to try something else? I'm like, well, I feel resistance coming up.
Okay.
Would you be willing to try? Yes. When could you do that? Today. Like, you know, that's how coaching works, is that like makes you be your own savior, basically.
I love that. I think that's so great.
And dang it, they weren't wrong. So I'm always seeking calm, but my whole like atmosphere is always calm and quiet because that's how I was raised. Be quiet. Go to your room. Shh, quiet. And so that's what I try to recreate. And when I started to like let the music take me, and you as a DJ can appreciate this, I'm sure, let the beat take you away, tears will just roll down my face and like I get this huge release. I'm like, what the hell? I need to incorporate more fun and more play into my life and that's something to pay attention to, is if you're seeking constant like meditation, or the opposite where you're seeking constant like go to the bar, play. Mm-hmm. Swap it. Try it. Do something different for a 1 week and see if you have anything that improves in your life.
Yeah, I'm super into just like trying things. I love that. Like if you just have like maybe just give it a try. 7 days, 5 days, 2 days, even like 1 day,
one time,
whatever. Like just give it a try. What do you? So when you dance, have you heard of like ecstatic dancing?
I have, and I have this resistance towards it at the retreat I just got back from. They had that one night, and I went like, nope. No? And then it keeps popping up. There's up north just a little bit. I think it's either in Tootle, and it's a newer thing that I'm aware of. Camp Running Wind or something like that. They host it. They host it all the time. There's the drum circles, the meditation things,
I'll go with you if you want to go.
Dance.
Seriously, I'll do it.
Okay, I'll find out more information.
It'd be uncomfortable. I've gotten better at dancing by myself. Of this, like I'll put up my mornings where I'll make sure nobody's gonna walk through that door. You know, I feel comfortable, but I'll just feel beautiful and dance around. You know, just whatever I gotta feel. That sounds awesome though. So what do you think? Like, what do you think that is? Like dancing, right? Like, does it move our analytical mind out of the way? You think
it breaks everything up a little bit?
Yeah.
It breaks up like that static.
Yeah.
That's running through you all the time.
Gosh, it's so crazy. Like you could see that like the reason you're not doing it is because of resistance, but that's what you know that you need to get through.
Yeah.
But we're still like, nah, I'm not
so dumb.
You know, I'm because I haven't. So I'm one thing that where I'm at now is allowing myself to ask for help, and for me that means like not doing everything by myself.
Yes.
So like my first yoga class was like 3 weeks. I've been doing yoga by myself like every day for 2 years. My first yoga class ever was like 3 weeks ago or a month ago or something. And it was because like the other people, like I was like, I really want to do it my way. I'm like afraid of like what masks and personas I turn on in front of other people. But I imagine, now that I'm thinking about it, that I was crazy anxiety that particular night. So I need to like, I'm going to go again. But with dancing, I imagine that really rips down that, like when you're dancing around other people.
Other people are, not that they look foolish, but they're doing the same movements as you. We're all just being a fool out there on the dance floor. It doesn't
the same
matter.
Thing.
Yeah. And they're not even paying attention to you.
Yeah.
They're doing their own thing. Yeah. So you pay attention to yourself too, and just like, let it go. Yeah. It's so, this whole process of like self-growth, like as a coach, I have to do the work first, and it's fast-paced and it's every day, and there's an assignment every day. It's kind of exhausting.
Right.
And sometimes I just have to sit there in my growth and acknowledge how far I've come. And then also I have to say, like, whew, I'm going to sit here today. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do the work today because I'm proud of how far I've come.
Yeah.
But then, like, with all the forward momentum of it, it feels good to keep trying new things. And there's many laughable moments because I just end up calling myself out all day long and just laughing at my rigidity or the stubbornness or like how silly it might have been for me to not try something new.
Right.
Like I was set in my ways. No, my way's the best. And if I just let go of all of that and just try and be more curious and be more playful, like have a more child's mind kind of, even though I'm an adult and I am a business owner and all these things, but know when to let loose. And it's so amazing.
Child mind. I think we all need to like not pretend we don't have it. Like not. I think it, like
find it first. Where is it?
Yeah,
it's tucked down under all that responsibility.
I think a lot of people who like when you see, because like I'm a DJ, but like I had all like social anxiety and depression and all these things. Like when Shay and I first got together, like we would go out to clubs and we would dance and like we loved dancing and all these things. But then over the years, I would start to get like more and more self-conscious, and then it turned into like my stage presence. I'm like pretty much just like wearing my hat as low as I can and trying to like bob my head forcibly, you know. So far disconnected from what I really started with, which was like, you know, music and like just playing music for other people is one of the coolest things you could ever do, right? And allowing your body to like be moved by it, like just to shut your brain up.
You influence how other people are perceiving that moment. Like you get to play the music and they get to feel what you like kind of want them to feel, like the vibe. I love and respect what DJs can do.
Thank you. Yeah, it's changed a lot over the last years for me, but it's something that I'll definitely hold on to. Like it's something that, like, I have some ideas and things that I've been working on, you know, as far as like a moment. I really like the storytelling, like I'm gonna take you through this journey of like my inner being through music. But it's going to point out things in your inner being, you know, and I think that like there's so much power in that when it comes to music. Like music is a very like interesting thing. Like frequency